Hello viewers, Tim Poole here, editor of Gaming Insider, and I'm presenting the conference call as we look back at ICE Barcelona 2025 and the Global Gaming Awards EMEA in Barcelona. First off, we're going to talk about the awards, and I'm here with Mariya Savova, the events manager, Global Gaming Awards. Mariya, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Always great to sit down and talk to you about all things industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And the awards, it was the first time in Barcelona. Just briefly tell us how it went.
It was, funnily enough, probably one of my favorite awards events that we've ever done, and that's talking as well all our awards events, including Vegas, Manila. I just really enjoyed it. It was obviously, as you can imagine, planning for it has been a bit stressful, as I would imagine the whole of ICE was for the organizers and for anybody participating, just because it's unknown. It's a new venue, new city. You know, you don't even know if people are going to find the venue. But I'm so happy how it went and super proud of what our whole team has achieved with the Global Gaming Awards. And of course, I'm super thankful that Clarion Gaming gave the awards a home at ICE. It's honestly a huge honor for us because ICE is the biggest show in the industry, isn't it? Yeah. And for us to be aligned with it, it's just been incredible. And I think it was very well received by the industry as well, as the Global Gaming Awards always are. But people were particularly welcoming to having it at the end of day one at ICE. So yeah, it's been really good. I'm kind of sad that it's over. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, I mean, everyone did find the venue in the end. Because of that unknown factor that you mentioned, what were the particular challenges, which I'm sure ICE as a whole had, but for the awards themselves?
Yeah, for us, definitely first finding the appropriate venue within the Fira to do an awards event, because as you know, even with our awards in Manila and in Vegas, we usually do them in those ballrooms, and previously the EMEA awards were in a casino, at the Hippodrome Casino. So this one was a bit different because we did it at a restaurant, but it worked so well. The people at the fair were actually lovely, and we did a bit of entertainment. We had the piano bar, which is not something that we've done previously at any of our awards events, to do any entertainment. So it worked really well. And other challenges, obviously, was finding enough space for all the people that wanted to come to the awards. We had to make it a lot more exclusive, because in Vegas or in Manila, when you have the big ballroom, you can invite hundreds of people. This one was limited to about 150, 180 people. And yeah, on the day, it was a challenge because all of a sudden, like, we kind of ran out of chairs, but luckily the people managed to bring a few more chairs out. That was challenging, just logistics as well. When these particular awards were in London, you know, our team is based in London, so it was just easy. You know, you take stuff to the Hippodrome. But overall, I'm happy with how it all went. And I think, yeah, even though there were challenges, it wasn't anything, you know, too difficult that we couldn't cope with.
Yeah, I think we're gonna discuss ICE itself later on, and I think that's a common theme. You know, there were challenges moving from London to Barcelona, but I think the overall impression is that it went so much smoother than it could have gone in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And that is both for the Global Gaming Awards and for ICE. I think everything just went so smooth.
Yeah. And so what was the response from kind of the attendees and the visitors, and, you know, some happy winners as well?
Oh, the winners were so chuffed, of course. Like, who wouldn't be when they win an award? In particular, SoftBet, like, they couldn't believe it because they won 3 awards, 2 company ones, and obviously the Executive of the Year for Yuri, their CEO and founder. Oh my God, I think, like, they were, like, half crying of happy tears, obviously. Yeah. It was just beautiful to see. But even other people, you know, that didn't win, they still, after the event, they'll find me and say, oh, thank you so much, this was, like, great. People always, what they love about the Global Gaming Awards, EMEA, Asia Pacific or Americas, is that they're short and to the point. We invite people, for this one, we invite them for a bit of networking for like half an hour before, but the actual presentation is done in about 40 minutes, so people can go and have their dinners or whatever else they have to do, meetings during the day. So people really appreciate that, which is also why we've been able to get some really senior executives to attend the Global Gaming Awards that they wouldn't necessarily go to other events that will take longer.
Yeah, and you mentioned Soft2 Bet with the 3 awards. They had a different representative for each award as well, so they really made an effort when it comes to the execs attending. And so looking ahead, obviously we had these are the first awards in Barcelona. Next year will be the second. What's in store for the awards in general, but for the EMEA in Barcelona?
For the EMEA in Barcelona, I think because we're so happy with how everything went this year, pretty much everyone gave us positive feedback. As I mentioned, I don't think anybody complained, as far as I'm aware. From sponsors, shortlisted companies, anybody, like, overall the feedback was amazing, so I think we're going to try and keep it there. Unfortunately, I don't think we can grow it in terms of attendees because the space is just limited. And beyond Barcelona, we're heading to Manila in June for the Global Gaming Awards Asia Pacific, for which nominations are actually open now. The awards will be during the Sigma Asia Summit, and then of course after that we're going to Las Vegas for a flagship event in October on the Monday of the Global Gaming Expo. The Vegas Awards, of course, always a highlight for us because the industry in America just leads the way. Everybody watches what America is doing. And the nominations for this one will probably open in March, so please, people, keep an eye on our website. That's it, really.
So a fantastic ceremony for the Global Gaming Awards EMEA in Barcelona, but we're also going to talk about ICE as a whole, the biggest show in the industry. And before we ended the week, we caught up with Stuart Hunter, the Managing Director of Clarion Gaming, and here are a few of his thoughts.
Oh, I tell you, it feels fantastic to have got the inaugural ICE Barcelona over the line. We've had an exhausting week, but to be here now at the closure of the show is a real feeling of jubilation. I just got huge gratitude for the industry for putting everything into it. You see some of the exhibiting booths out there, some of the designs, some of the creativity. It's phenomenal. I think the show has taken up a step up from London, if that was even possible. I think excitement because we can now let the excitement of delivering something as satisfying and as successful as this event and enjoy that from a team.
So really interesting as always to hear from Stuart, who we always review ICE with him, and it's always been in London, now it was in Barcelona. In terms of our thoughts, what did you find about the organisation and the first ICE in Barcelona?
But first I'm just going to say, I always enjoy your conversations with Stuart before ICE, and then at the end of ICE, like, nice way of bookending the whole show. It's it's a little tradition now, isn't it?
Yeah.
For me, this year's ICE was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. So huge congratulations to Stuart and everybody at Clarion Gaming. I think it went so smooth because even though obviously they moved the show because of the industry, it was they consulted with the industry, so it wasn't a Clarion decision, it was an industry decision to move ICE there, and they've explored various venues because I've spoken to the Clarion guys a lot. I even went to a media tour of the Fira in summer last year, so they told me more about the process of like why they selected Barcelona. And still, even though it was an industry decision, I think there was a lot of people with reservations towards Barcelona, especially because people were concerned about safety in the city, which I genuinely didn't find any problem with. For me, it was maybe even safer than London these days. And just other stuff, like still logistics, even though Barcelona, Spain is in the EU, unlike the UK, I think it's still logistically challenging when it's a new place. But I think the organization was brilliant. It all went very smoothly. It was very easy to get to the venue, whether it's by cab or public transport. It just worked brilliantly. Even by public transport, I noticed if you wanted to get the train to Fira, not the metro, the faster train, there were signs, take this train for ICE in like one of the central stations in Barcelona, which to me was pretty much incredible because London doesn't do that for any event, not just for ICE. London's just, events are just, not a big deal for London. Whereas Barcelona as a city is very welcoming towards this event, and I think Clarion have developed a very good relationship with the city of Barcelona, and I think it was brilliant. I also really like that they sectioned the expo floor, so if you're interested into online, you go there. If you're interested in payments, you go there, and you're in just one little zone.
Yeah, I mean, the Fira really is immense, and as you said, it's an industry decision. There were a couple of other cities. I think it was a short list of 4, including London, that Clarion were looking into. Barcelona was chosen, and it looks like a really good decision. There were certain stands that you could really see they had the space that they were kind of asking for from the Excel. Were there any for you that any not necessarily stands, but areas of the show that like stood out?
Areas of the show I really liked that they really put a lot of focus on responsible gaming, sustainable gaming. It was just, it was good to see that conversation was going throughout the whole of ICE, and I think it just shows that we're really growing as an industry. We're taking player safety very seriously, and I think Clarion really put player safety at the forefront of ICE. If I remember correctly, I think 3 charities were given 5-figure donations. That was like those donations came from big organizations like Flutter, Novomatic, which was really nice. In terms of the actual expo floor, I think there was some pretty impressive stands as well. What stood out for me, I think I really loved the Evolution stand, which was the first one you actually see.
Yeah.
Was very impressive, like with the LED screens and everything, and Sport Radar with the live basketball and where you can see their AI tracking technology. It was really great. That I don't think they could have done that in the Excel. Maybe they didn't have enough space, or but it was just really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a huddle with Luca Pataki from Sport Radar at the stand, and the console basketball was really cool. In terms of maybe a final word on looking back on the show and maybe looking ahead to next year, was there anything you think that could be maybe done slightly different? Because even Stuart Hunter, it's a learning experience, as he admitted, for everyone. And what were your kind of final impressions, given as well next year we're going to be moving into a couple more halls as well, so it's going to be even bigger.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's going to be bigger, and if it stays there as a permanent home for the next maybe decade or so, it can go even bigger, because I saw last year during the media tour with the Fira, the venue itself, they're building an extension to it. So yeah, ICE can really grow.
Yeah.
What they can do better, I genuinely don't know, because I don't think I have any negative comments about it whatsoever. I think they probably would have noticed some stuff that went wrong, but to us as visitors, I don't think I spotted anything. So yeah, I genuinely wouldn't be able to advise them what to do better.
More of the same, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
More of the same. I think overall it was just a really happy week for everybody. I'm kind of sad it's over.
Yeah, well, they exceeded expectations, but I think it's probably the result of, it wasn't just really 1 year's preparation, it was a few years that this was being thought about, and so yeah, we really got to see that this week, as you say. Yeah, well, Mariya, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, I'm glad you had such a good day.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Lovely to talk to you.
Now we're going to talk a little bit more about ICE Barcelona and also the Gambling Insider interviews that we conducted throughout the show. We're going to be joined by Will Underwood, staff writer. Will, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, what were your impressions of the show in general? And I think you're potentially a good judge because you did a lot of steps throughout the week, visiting many different stands.
Yeah, even with these long legs, a lot of steps. I really enjoyed it. I think that generally it was really nicely well organised and easy to navigate. My closest comparison would be with SBC Lisbon, because that was another big one. And I felt that it was really well done by ICE this time around. One slight thing I would say is I felt that the conference rooms could have been labelled a little bit better, but not to draw on a negative. Something that I really enjoyed though was having the Media City sort of placed on its way through to the sports betting section. I think it just kind of created a little bit of variation as you sort of move through the conference, and it was a nice place for us to be sort of based as well. So
yeah, at MC1 we did see a lot of traffic coming through, and as you say, on the way to the sports betting section. In terms of any stands or any areas of the show that really stood out to you, one thing we've already mentioned is the Sport Radar, the basketball, and you conducted that huddle. Can you tell us any examples of that one and others that maybe stood out?
Yeah, I think that was the one that comes to mind first. I think that was just really interactive, quite literally playful, and it really drew, I think it was drawing a lot of people in, which is exactly what you kind of want out of a stand. And on top of that, you know, aside from it creating a really nice background for our huddle, it was a really, really clear and sort of well laid out example of the technology, how it all works, watching the players sort of play the basketball and then having it represented in a screen right next to the court. I think was just a really good idea and was really well executed. So that was a good one. We spent a little bit of time at Pragmatic Play's stand as well, which was again super interactive, super playful, and I think also once, like the Candyland area was quite a big hit with people as well. They had like a VR motorbike section, a big spin the wheel which I had to go on. And I think when you kind of can visualize these games and like I say, interact with them, it kind of creates a whole new element to the experience, really sticks in the brain. And I think that was really nicely put together as well.
Yeah, and I think all these stands had a little bit more room to breathe than perhaps in the Excel, which I think helped emphasize kind of the good qualities that you're mentioning.
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
And finally, in terms of interviewees, because there were a lot of interviews that you conducted throughout the week, did anyone stand out and did any interesting kind of topics stand out as well?
Yeah, it's tough because they're usually all really good. And that was the case again this time. I think one that really stood out in terms of the ease of transaction of the whole experience, as well as the really intriguing and just generally informative content, was Zeva Lapin, Deputy CEO of Playson. Just nice to sit down and talk with someone who really, really clearly lays out, it's like kind of unscrambles all your questions very clearly and like is really happy to showcase their industry knowledge and as well as talking about what the company has going on in a very informative and non-overly sort of braggish way.
I think short-termism is what hurts iGaming a lot these days, and this is what we're trying to avoid. So Playson is about long-term road, so we're running a marathon, not a sprint, and I would love industry to have this kind of mentality as well.
So yeah, that one really stood out to me. I think one that impressed me, I don't want to say the most, but a lot, was Nick Patrick, CEO of Radar. What I really liked about that interview was he took a very, very complex subject matter, such as geocompliance and geolocation. Like, as we say, it's very technologically complex. And I think also the people who have a sort of high knowledge of that kind of stuff, it's quite a niche group. But he made it really, really interesting to listen to. And I think that's quite a hard thing to do. So yeah, I'd be intrigued to sort of keep an eye on how they develop in the industry in the next couple of years.
Yeah, another recent Huddle guest, and I agree that he breaks things down very, very nicely and clearly. Well, Will, we look forward to ICE next year, and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, for the concluding part of our conference call, we're going to continue to talk a little bit more about ICE, but also focus specifically on IGB affiliate in Barcelona, and that's with Beth Tan, senior staff writer at Gambling Insider.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Not a problem. So you were at the London show last year and Barcelona this year. What were the big differences? What were the similarities, and what were your overall impressions?
Thanks. So I think overall we see the same players kind of coming year on year, and so there is continuity between all of them. You see the same people there, but every year everyone is trying to up themselves from the year before. And I think with the new location in Barcelona, there was just more space to play with, right? I believe it was a 20% increase in the terms of the overall space that was available, and you can see that in the stands that everyone had. There was more space to experiment, to play, and do more things like that. So very impressive visually in terms of what everyone was able to achieve, and kind of opens the box for where things could go next in terms of creatively, you know, what is the limit for what we can do.
Looking at IGB affiliate specifically, which we haven't touched on yet, you've written a review for Trafficology. What can you tell us in the way of maybe previewing that review, but like your overall impressions of the show?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, kind of with IGB, there's always a fun to it and a playfulness to it. I think that's what affiliates are all about, is as much about what you do as who you know, right? And you have to be able to facilitate those conversations and networking opportunities within IGB. And so you definitely see a lot of fun stuff there, and that's always a good time to be around, whether you're seeing, you know, I saw drag queens there, I saw claw machines, you see all kind of crazy things, but it isn't just play. But there is still business going on there, and you learn a lot from all of the affiliates there, and it's always great to get an insight onto what they're doing. I think sometimes, especially doing what we do with Trafficology, to stay on the ground of what affiliates are up to and to talk to these people and know what is going on is really critical for us.
So within IGB affiliate, were there any stands or operators or affiliates that really stood out? It's not meant to be a pun, but that really shone in front of everyone?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So obviously Alpha Affiliates had a very fantastic stand there. It was kind of a two-tier system with a big screen behind them, and that had a lot of fun, a lot of playfulness, very much was indicative of that brand and kind of the almost the street style that they try and put out there. We also spoke to Uno affiliates, and we also spoke to NetRefer while we were out there, and they had stands that were very warm, very inviting. They weren't the largest stands by far, but I don't think you necessarily have to be big and loud and flashy in order to have an effective stand. And those guys did a very good job in using the space that they had and the resources that they had to create good environments where we could have those conversations and really facilitate learning between us and what they do.
More of the same for a lot of those guys, I'm sure, in 2026. But for a final word, if I was to open it up back to IGB affiliate and ICE overall, if there was maybe one thing you personally would do differently next year, what would that be?
Sure. So I think for me, one of the things that I've really appreciated at previous shows is like the notation of each stand and where they are. You go to a stand and it will say, 3D 12, and the next one 3D 14. However, that kind of structure has been gone about. And I think sometimes when you have the larger stands, you can't always put that notation in. So I think just having slightly more notation of where all the stands are to help guide and navigate when you have such a large space, when you have interviews, when you have meetings, just to make sure you know where you're going at all times, just to keep things clear, keep everyone concise, and make sure that everyone gets to where they need to be. Because I did a lot of steps while I was at ICE and IGB this time, and I assume with extra space being opened up next year, that is, only going to increase.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's fair. I think that's a fair point, just because there's going to be more halls next year.
Absolutely. I did the maths. I did 87,000 steps while I was at ICE this year, which is about 40 miles. So let's see what next year has in store.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Beth, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to next year.
Cheers. Thanks, Tim.
Well, that's a wrap on the conference call. To our viewers, thanks for watching. To the team, thanks for joining me. And for more coverage on ICE, the Global Gaming Awards, and IGB affiliate, be sure to follow Gambling Insider's channels and websites for all of our video interviews.